Straight ahead, protesters' demands. We look at what pro-Palestinian students and community members are asking the University of Texas to do and how the UT is responding. Primary runoff battle. We speak with both Republicans vying for an open state House seat in Fort Worth, and there's a difference between them emerging over the issue of destination resorts featuring casino gambling. One-on-one, Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson reacts to the voters' passage of the $1.25 billion bond and sounds off on whether the now former city manager should get a severance package worth more than $400,000, even though he started a new job in Austin. Good morning, I'm Jack Fink. Get your fix for Texas politics. Eye on Politics starts now. Hello and welcome to Eye on Politics, and happy Mother's Day. If this isn't one of the most important days of the year, I don't know what is. We begin this Sunday morning with demands from pro-Palestinian protesters at UT Dallas, UT Austin, and UNT in Denton. At the UT campuses, students and those not affiliated with the universities have been arrested after setting up encampments, which are against the rules. The pro-Palestinian protesters have demanded the UT system divest from companies associated with the Israeli military and publicly state there should be a ceasefire in Gaza. Israel says Hamas still holds 100 hostages after the terrorist group's deadly attack October 7th. Students at UT Dallas said they set up an encampment when it became clear the university's administrators wouldn't meet their demands. At UNT in Denton, students had their own demands for administrators.
Additionally, we reject any complicity that our institution has in the genocide in Gaza and the settler colonial violence faced by Palestinians. We demand that the university disclose all investments made through the UNT Foundation.
At UT Arlington, protesters made similar demands. No arrests have been made there. Also this week, Jewish students at UT Dallas held a news conference saying they no longer feel welcome and safe on campus. That's because they say the chants by pro-Palestinian protesters are anti-Israel and anti-Semitic. Similar chants have been made at UT Austin and at UNT in Denton, including those that the Anti-Defamation League say call for the destruction of Israel and falsely accuse Israel of genocide. At their news conference, Jewish students at UT Dallas said they have been threatened on social media or yelled at while walking to class, and that some students have had to request police security and move student events off campus. They say the university needs to better enforce its own rules against hate speech and discrimination.
Put in one word, terrifying. It is terrifying to walk around campus right now.
Going from class to class and being harassed is extremely mentally draining. It makes you not want to go to school at all, in a place where you should be able to go and learn.
The chairman of the UT System Board of Regents, Kevin Eltife, spoke out this week and responded to demands by pro-Palestinians for UT to divest from companies doing business with the Israeli military.
Divestment is not an option. We will continue to maximize our investments to ensure our students have scholarships and we can provide an affordable, accessible education.
Some universities have canceled graduation ceremonies because of security concerns, but Texas universities vowed the ceremonies would go on as planned. Now to a follow-up on last weekend's municipal elections. In Dallas, voters overwhelmingly approved the 2024 bond, which supporters said would help improve residents' quality of life. In all, it was $1.25 billion. $521 million will go toward fixing streets, and $345 million will be spent on parks and recreation. And $50 million will go toward a new police training facility. Mayor Eric Johnson says the bond will help the city compete with younger and smaller suburbs.
People are choosing Texas, but we want them to choose North Texas, and within North Texas, we want them to choose the city of Dallas versus our suburbs.
In Frisco, voters rejected two ballot propositions that would have provided civil service protections and collective bargaining for the city's firefighters. Firefighters say the city needs more of them to improve response times, but Mayor Jeff Cheney told me the city has a better solution.
We have a fundamentally different philosophy, which is to build more fire stations. To get people and apparatus closer to the people is how we improve response times.
You just heard from Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson about the bond election. Coming up later, he sounds off on whether city taxpayers should pay the former city manager a severance package, even though he has a new job in Austin. But next, we focus on a Republican primary runoff battle for a state house seat in Fort Worth, where there's a difference between them emerging over the issue of destination resorts featuring casino gambling. Eye on Politics. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back to Eye on Politics. Now to a hotly contested Republican primary runoff battle coming up May 28th for a state house seat in North Texas, although they are all over the state. This race we're talking about is for the open state house District 97 seat, which has a Republican majority and includes parts of Fort Worth, Benbrook, and Crowley. The current representative, Craig Goldman of Fort Worth, is running for Congress. Cheryl Bean and John McQueenie, both small business owners, are vying in the runoff. McQueenie is being backed by Governor Greg Abbott. Bean has been endorsed by Senator Ted Cruz, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, Attorney General Ken Paxton, among others. First, we hear from Cheryl Bean. We talked about an issue that's likely to come up during the next legislative session, changing the Texas Constitution to allow casino gambling at a limited number of destination resorts in Texas. She also discussed her top priorities, improving public education and providing taxpayer-funded education savings accounts or school vouchers, and securing the border. And I asked her what happens if the state's immigration law, SB 4, is ruled unconstitutional by the federal courts.
I think we have to take control of the border regardless. I really do. I think we have to put a stop to this if we want to keep our country America, and if we want to keep Texas, Texas.
You talked a little bit about education. Do you support school choice, universal school choice?
Yes, I support universal school choice, universal being defined as it's available for everyone, okay? And I think it needs to be defined in such a way that there's no strings attached. That's one of the top planks of the Republican Party.
And what about teachers? Do they deserve a raise?
Absolutely.
And should the legislature pass a separate bill for that? Because this was an issue, obviously, during the last regular session. That didn't pass because school choice didn't pass. I mean, should these be separate legislation, or do you think they should be voted as one package?
I think they should be separate. Whether or not school choice ultimately passes, and I think it will, teachers deserve a raise. I think it's been 5 years since they've gotten it. And you think about it, their job is a hard job. My mom and sister are both lifetime educators, and they have to deal with all kinds of issues, and the ability that, for parents to come after and sue them. And so they deserve a raise. They are bringing up the future of Texas.
Should property taxes be eliminated?
I would love if they were eliminated. The reality of it is you've got to make up that money somewhere. But as someone who is kind of towards the latter years here and has houses paid off, it would be nice to know that ultimately you can retire and you're not going to be buried by rising property taxes. That's something you've already paid for. So I recognize that's going to require other means of collecting money, probably sales tax, but you can control what you spend. You cannot control the taxes on a house that you've owned for 30, 40 years.
And I mean, how soon, you said you support it, but obviously there needs to be a way to pay for state government to operate
Absolutely.
schools, et cetera. Do you think this is a long-term solution?
Yes, I don't think this is something that's an on-off. This year we have property taxes, next year we don't. This is going to be something that we have to develop other means of supplying that income for our government. So I think it will be a several-year effort.
Where are you on casino gambling resorts in Texas?
I know that there are those who want to push that. It's a moot point and a waste of taxpayer money to go down that path, because our Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick, has already said it will not pass as long as he's sitting at the head of the Senate. Secondly, anyone who wants to support that is really out to turn, I think, Texas Democrat, because with gambling comes some of the largest unions that you have, and it's not necessarily educated. It's going to be jobs that the illegals coming across the border can do.
And now we hear from John McQueenie. We also asked him about the idea of casino gambling at a limited number of destination resorts in Texas. And as you'll hear, this is where a major difference with Bean is emerging. But first, we discussed his top priorities, which include securing the border, improving education, and providing taxpayer-financed education savings accounts or vouchers.
And we need to give our parents the choice to choose what's right for their kids.
And when you say that, as far as school choice, so that's universal school choice, taxpayer-funded education savings accounts for everybody?
Yes. I believe that the last bill that went to the legislation, I would have supported. It eased into it. It had a cap at $500 million and 25,000 students. I think that was the right approach. It would have focused initially on lower income areas and disabled students. We cannot be leaving students behind, and I would have supported that bill.
Let's go back to border security. As you know, SB 4 is in the federal courts.
Sure it is.
So what happens? What should be done if SB 4 is ruled unconstitutional?
We need to work with the legal environment to get something that does work. We need to be able to enforce the laws. We've got to put pressure on Washington. I'm certainly hoping that in the next term that we're working with President Trump, who will actually enforce the federal laws so that we can support that.
You spoke about property tax relief.
Yes, sir.
You want to eliminate property taxes. How soon, and what do you put in its place so that state government can actually fund itself and schools?
Yeah. I think that it's a pathway. I don't think that it can happen overnight. There's not going to be an appetite for a 20% sales tax. You know, we're on a path to abolishing property taxes. I don't think that we should be renting our houses from the government. Our homes shouldn't be a rental property owing, you know, the property taxes forever. In order to get there, we've got to be able to foster growth in our state so that revenues continue to increase. We've got to cut red tape with business policies so that businesses can grow. A lot of people say that Texas is the most business-friendly state. I see ways as a business owner that we can make it even more business-friendly and make sure that people can continue to succeed.
And going back to teacher pay raises, is that something that you think should be a separate bill, one for teacher raises, one for school choice?
We need to ensure that teachers get the pay that they deserve. It is disappointing to me that people that go and want to be educators come out of college with debt that they can't service with what they're currently being paid.
Do you support casino gambling resorts, the idea of that around the state?
I support the idea that the voters should be able to decide. I will never put legislation forward that the voters would decide on that would turn us into Oklahoma or Louisiana, where you've got slot machines in the back of gas stations or anything along the lights, or where there's casinos on every single street corner. I think that that's a big disappointment in those states. What I would support giving the voters a choice on is resort-style casinos with a limited handful of licenses in the state. A lot of people talk about all the negativity of casinos. That negativity already exists in our society. There are backroom poker games. There's all kinds of other addiction, and we need to make sure that we fund the resources that we have to fight those things. But in my opinion, if we want to get real about property tax relief, we need to get real about revenue generation. And I just don't see that that's something that 180 of us in Austin should decide. I support giving the voters the choice on that. I think that they need to be destination style. They need to be massive economic impact, where you've got convention space, hotel space, restaurant space, entertainment space, and gaming.
Coming up, Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson one-on-one. He sounds off on whether the now former city manager should get paid a severance when Eye on Politics returns. But first, in light of the major flooding we've seen in East Texas and the Houston area, in this week's brief, Sarah Jenkins dives into how these kinds of events are costing Texans billions.
2023 was a record-setting year for costly weather events in the Lone Star State and across the country, and data from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration shows these events are becoming more frequent. Last year, Texas led the nation with the most billion-dollar weather and climate disasters, with more than $20 billion in shared losses. Since 1980, these kinds of weather events have cost the state more than $300 billion. More than half of the costs due to tropical cyclones. Across the country last year, insurance companies paid out on $25 billion of insured disaster damage, and insurance rates raised more than 20% in 2023.
Dallas leaders are all abuzz this week after CBS News Texas reported Dallas Police Chief Eddie Garcia has received interest from the city of Houston after their chief retired effective immediately. Dallas's interim city manager, Kim Tolbert, issued a statement acknowledging the situation, saying, quote, "To the cities shopping in Dallas for a new chief, I have one message for you. Turn around and go back home." Mayor Eric Johnson issued a statement saying, quote, "Chief Garcia is the best police chief in America." We spoke with the mayor Monday before this news came out, and among the topics we discussed, former Dallas City Manager T.C. Broadnax, who has started his new job as Austin City Manager. Even after he left Dallas, some people and leaders are now wondering if city taxpayers will be paying Broadnax a lump sum payment equal to what his annual salary in Dallas was, more than $423,000. Last month, Broadnax sent this letter to the city attorney identifying the 8 council members who he said suggested that he resign. And that may trigger a provision that's reportedly in his contract. It says if a majority of council members ask him to leave the city, he could collect a severance package that includes 1 year's salary. I asked the mayor if taxpayers should pay Broadnax a severance.
I'll be very honest with you, Jack. I hope not. I hope we're not on the hook for that. But I can't say that unilaterally. You know, the form of government we have here, I don't just get to say that's what's going to happen. I think that's a council decision, and I'm a member of the Dallas City Council. I would hope that we would make the decision that this departure doesn't qualify as a severance in the way that the provision of the contract was designed. The situation that we're dealing with is pretty straightforward. Someone wanted to leave and take another position, and they did, and that's fine. This is America. You have the right to do that. But do you have the right to walk out the door with $500,000 of taxpayer money to do that? That's not what that. I wouldn't have included the provision at all in the last city manager contract. I wasn't on the council then. I wasn't the mayor then. The last mayor, my predecessor in that council, saw fit to put this provision in the contract. I wouldn't have done it. I don't want to pay any more folks for leaving the job. You know, if we're going to borrow any concepts from corporate America, and I think we should, in terms of finding an executive for the city, how about the concepts of paying people for performance? If we're going to borrow a concept, how about paying a city manager a bonus or additional compensation for hitting some aggressive metrics we have for improving the efficiency of the permitting office, or further driving down violent crime, or further driving down the taxes.
Right now you have an interim, Kim Tolbert, and do you think that she has a good chance at it, or are you looking for somebody fresh from the outside?
I don't want to speculate on anybody's employment situation. Kim Tolbert is in the interim position now. That was, again, a council decision, and it's a council decision that I'm comfortable with. I'm fine with her being the interim. But I've also been very clear about this. I think the 9th largest city in America, which is what Dallas is, that is one of the largest cities left that still is run by a city manager form of government, what we call a council manager form of government, owes it to its residents, if we're going to be under this form of government, to take the hiring of the city managers seriously. And that means we need to really look nationally at, I'd say, public sector executives and private sector executives.
How would you describe the situation that the city is now facing with regards to its recently purchased building off I-35 that houses the permitting office? It was bought in 2022, and it had to be closed amid fire code violations and only temporary certificates of occupancy. How would you describe this situation?
Sounds like a mess. Sounds like a mess to me, right? It sounds like that's not something I'm happy about at all. I'm just listening to you say that. I mean, I think the residents of Dallas clearly deserve better than that. That's not something that we are proud of, or we should be proud of. And so this next city manager, and this would be on my list of things that I would want to see, and I'm going to have a loud voice in this process. I'm not the only voice. I mean, the whole city council is going to weigh in on this next hire, but they need to understand that we can't be making the newspaper for asinine stuff like this.
I looked at the latest numbers as of Saturday. And so murders down from 96 to 72, that's down 25% from a year ago. Ag assaults down from 2374 to 1914, 19.38%. Robberies down from 755 to 743, down about 1.6%.
The police chief and I, we talk all the time. We're not in the business of doing, touchdown dances and taking victory laps as long as there's anybody who's a victim of violent crime, but that's undeniable progress. I mean, we're talking about almost 30% year-to-date reductions in the most serious forms of violent crime. We're happy about that. It's proof that we're on the right path and we're doing the right things.
And following up, 2 days after our interview, Dallas council members approved sending nearly $420,000 to the city manager's office. The money will go to former city manager T.C. Broadnax for a severance. And remember, you can watch all of our full interviews you saw this morning on our website, cbsnewstexas.com, and go to the Eye on Politics icon. And that's all for Eye on Politics for this Sunday. I'm Jack Fink. I am listening, and we are listening at CBS News Texas. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again next week. Happy Mother's Day once again, and from all of us, have a great weekend.